We shall now look at the other parts of variation, joint and partial variation. We will refresh by looking at what joint variation is all about. Joint variation involves a combination of two or more variables. A quantity could vary directly with S and inversely with Y at the same time, simultaneously. Thus, we can write that Z varies directly with S and inversely with Y. This is an example of a joint variation because it involves more than one variable. Therefore, our Z, introducing the quality sign for the constant of variation and the constant K, we now have Z equal to Ks all over Y. This becomes the equation connecting S, Y, and Z. Before the equation is fully written, you will be given conditions that will make you to be able to find the values of K. You substitute accordingly to give you the exact equation connecting the three variables, S, Y, and Z. Now this can be read as Z varies directly with S and inversely with Y. The second type, or the fourth one, by our formal recording, direct, inverse, joint, and now this is the fourth one. This is the second one for today. Partial variation. Partial variation involves the sum of terms. Can be two terms, can be more than two terms. But generally, we are concerned with two terms. For example, S equal to A plus BY. A and B are constant. This is a constant specifically. This one has a constant and a variable. That is why they said it's partial variation. Because one of it is totally constant, while the other one varies with another constant. We can read this as S is partly constant, A, and partly varies with Y. Take note, S is partly constant, that is the A there, and partly varies with Y. It is the variation partly varies with Y. It is that one that carries another constant. Directly related to partial variation is another form of variation under partial variation, but this is a variation at the sum of two parts. C is equal to AS plus BS squared. Both terms carry a constant A and B respectively. They are constant. Now this is read as C varies partly as S and partly as S squared. C varies partly as S. The word varies means that you have to bring in a constant of variation, and also varies partly as S squared. Because the varies is affecting both, then you must introduce the two constants of variation for the two terms. We shall now look at examples. Let's take the first example under joint and partial variation. Number 1. P varies directly as the square of Q and inversely as R. If P is equal to 36, when Q is equal to 3, and R equal to 4, find P when Q is equal to 5 and R is equal to 2. Solution. Let's say the question again. P varies directly at the square of Q and inversely as R. In other words, our P is equal to K Q squared all over R. And if our P is 36, our Q is 3, so we have 3 squared, and then our R is equal to 4. This first or second statement will enable us to find the value of K, so our K therefore will be equal to 4 times 36 all over 9. 3 squared is 9, and that is equal to 16. So we can write the relationship between P and Q and R as 16Q squared all over R. And lastly, we are to find P, given that Q is equal to 5, so we have 16 times 5 squared, and then our R is equal to 2. So that will give you 8 times 25, and 8 times 25 will give you 0 and give you 200. So the value of that will be equal to 200. We'll take a look at example 2. If S is jointly proportional to the cube of Y and the fourth power of Z, in what ratio is S decreased or increased when Y is half and Z is double? Solution. Let's take S1 as the first instance, where S is jointly proportional to the cube of Y. We introduce the constant of variation, and cube of Y we write this, and the fourth power of Z we write Z raised to power 4. Then when Y is half, let's assume that the constant is K1. Half of Y is 3 raised to power 3. And then your Z is also double, so 2 of Z, and this is raised to power 4. If you simplify this, you have your K1 times 1 over 8 Y cubed times 16 Z raised to power 4, because 2 raised to power 4 is 16. This will also simplify our Z2 to K1, 8 to cancel 16, that will be 2 Y cubed and Z raised to power 4. In other words, we have 2 K1 Y raised to power 3 and Z raised to power 4. If you compare S1 and the final result of S2, you discover that the S have been increased, have been doubled. So you now see that S is actually increased. It's increased by 2. So the former one was this, and this is the later one. Therefore, the ratio of increase is 2 to 1. Let's take example 3. In an hotel, the cost of providing a particular type of food is partly constant and partly inversely proportional to the number of people. If the cost per head for 100 people is 300 naira and the cost for 40 people is 500 naira, find the cost for 50 people, correct to 2 decimal places. Our solution. Let C be the cost of providing the particular type of food in that hotel. And we are told that it is partly constant and partly inversely proportional let's use B, inversely proportional to the number of people. Let N be the number of people. We now have this relationship. Now the next statement says that if the cost per head for 100 people is 300 naira, so we have 300 for the cost. A is there plus B, and the number of people is 100. 100 persons. You can take this as your first equation. He went further to say, and the cost for 40 people is 500 naira. So we have 500 naira, our A plus B, and for 40 people. This is equation number 2. We are going to solve equation 1 and equation 2 simultaneously. You can do that by saying equation 2, take away equation 1. You take away 300 from 500, you have 200. You take away A from A is 0. You will now take away B all over 100 from B all over 40. So we have B over 40 minus B all over 100. Now let's solve for B. If you solve for B in that equation, you have that B will be equal to 40,000 all over 3. So we now substitute for B in any of the equations. Let's substitute for B in equation 2. You now have 500 equal to A plus 40,000 all over 3 times 1 over 40. So that will give you A plus 100 all over 3, and eventually that will give you 3A plus 1000 equal to 3 times 500. And your 3A is equal to 1500 minus 1000, and that will give you 500. So your A here is 500 all over 3. Therefore, we can write the cost will be equal to A, which is 500 over 3, plus our B, which is 40,000 all over 3 times N. So this is the relationship between the cost and the number of people. For us to get the cost for 50 people, therefore, the cost for 50 people will be equal to 500 over 3 plus 40,000 all over 3 times 50. You will simplify this as best as you can. You will have 1300 all over 3, which will translate to 433 naira and then 33 kobo. 433 naira and 33 kobo. But meanwhile, you have to correct your answer to 2 decimal places, and that is the correct answer, without much ado about it. So that is the correct answer to the problem.